Hello, everybody. As you know, and as Claire told you, I'm Rafael Dona. I'm from Venezuela, and I'm also known as Happy Help, Claire's VA. And I'm here with the one and only Claire Kumar. Welcome to our very first conversation in the series, Proactivity for Neurodivergent Professionals. Today, we're exploring how to design your space so that you can not only get what you need to get done, but you'll feel great doing it too.
Thanks, Rafael. I love to say your name properly. It's so beautiful. And in fact, yeah, it was just before joining everyone today. I had another media conversation, this with the Globe and Mail. They're doing a piece on talking about the commute and how it relates to mental health and stress. And the commute is often a part of our workspace that we don't get to think about. And so it was really interesting to have a conversation about what can we do to make our commutes even more comfortable as a space of part of our workday. So Rafael said, yes, I've been a productivity coach for many, many years, and it's my great love to unlock people's performance and figure out what's getting in the way, whether it's our own blocks, whether it's a design or external opportunity to really mitigate. And so I'm really looking forward to this hour with you to share some of what I've gleaned, not only as a productivity coach, but as a member of the neurodivergent space. For about 10 years, I identified as a highly sensitive person and really anchored in all of the beauty that lies with that trait, which affects about 1 in 5 people. But would you know, it's about 10 days ago, I received my own diagnosis of autism and now re-looking at life through a lens which says autism is present, ADHD is present, and of course sensory sensitivity is there. So that's just a little bit about my lived experience and why that makes me someone really excited to join you today to have this conversation about designing your space. So, as Raphael says, you get to do what you need to do, but you also get to feel a lot better doing it. And so, again, I wanted to make sure you feel like you can ask questions, send a DM to Raphael. And if you want to come on stage, we're really happy to do that. I love jamming live. Definitely raise your hand after you've sent that DM, and Raphael will be in charge of bringing you on stage at a great time. So, first, let me recap a little bit in my perspective about what some of the challenges are as a neurodivergent professional with respect to work. And the big one that comes to mind is sensory sensitivity. And if we're thinking about sensory sensitivity, we're thinking about sensitivity in terms of having the appropriate amount of stimulation to have your brain functioning at its best, and your brain and your nervous system holistically. And a lot of times we talk a lot about hypersensitivity, which is where I live, but we also need to be cognizant of hyposensitivity, which is also where I live, and understanding the relationship to the amount of stimulation you need. And stimulation comes in many forms. I want to let you all know right now, Elliot, one of my two cats, has now jumped on my desk. And he's part of my sensory experience. Pretty much anytime I'm recording, he shows up and he's here for it. And it's kind of wonderful because I get to pet a cat while I'm talking to you. So, what's in your space from a sensory perspective that is a real fit for you? And maybe here's an invitation for you. What's a list of things that are in your space from a sensory perspective that kind of trip you up, kind of get in your way? I'd love to hear from someone who'd love to share about their space. So if you want to join the conversation to talk about sensitivity in particular, I want to dial in. First of all, sound is the most pervasive experience. I suppose, first of all, maybe temperature would be temperature and humidity and getting those right so that you're comfortable in your office. And then sound is all around us and can be either helpful to concentration and productivity or a complete sabotage. I don't know about you, but when I was working in the corporate world and was working in an office, the sound of a subway commute was already kind of depleting me before I got to the sound of an office. And luckily, I worked many years ago in a corporate space, so I had my own office. As I look at the great evolution to open concept offices, an open space, not only from a physical security, a need for safety and refuge, those are design terms where we need to feel safe in our space. We can often feel too exposed in our space and also assaulted by a lot of noise that makes it difficult to actually concentrate. And so I'm curious if anybody's had that experience and figured out how to mitigate it. I mean, noise cancellation headphones have become our best friends and also thankfully very culturally appropriate now. People understand we need something to do to be able to block our auditory stimulation. We might also need this physical blocks. And oh my gosh, I just had a memory of how at the breakfast table in the morning, I was one of three girls. And I, this is really kind of terrible, but I used to line up the cereal boxes around me so that I could have my little private breakfast cubicle while I was having breakfast. And I'm realizing that sounds really kind of horrible, probably for my poor sisters, but that's what I would do. And I created sort of my breakfast cubicle, again, controlling my environment so that I felt comfortable to eat my same every morning breakfast of Weetabix milk and a tablespoon of sugar because we didn't know back then that we weren't supposed to sugar overload. So that's what I used to do. Coming back to sensory sensitivity, we talk about also paying attention to light. This is something that I've really noticed an incredibly augmented sensitivity to as light has become very inexpensive and seems to be hyperabundant through cheap LED lighting. We have to pay attention to glare from lighting, the intensity of the light, reflection of light, the source of light in relationship to the environment around it, which can often be very dark. And if you have a bright light, I learned the hard way that that can trigger for me a migraine, a very debilitating, have to go and shut down within less than an hour of that kind of environment. And this is coming from shooting videos in production studios. I'm like, whoa, this is not for me. I need to have great ambient light so there's not so much contrast, and then I have a better shot of not triggering it. And also paying attention to flicker, so how a light is flashing, and color temperature. If it's cold light, so for example, today I'm based in Toronto. Rafael is luckily based in Venezuela, where he's always got an abundance of sunshine, and I live vicariously through Rafael. But in Toronto, we woke up through to intense fog. And I live on the 43rd story of a building. And you would open the window and it was just pure white light. Well, that white light can also triggers me to want to block it. And so blue light blockers, extra blinds, being able to actually choose the color temperature of lighting that you're immersed in can be really, really, really helpful. Furthering awareness of our senses, we can think of smells, textures. I mentioned temperature and humidity, and we can even think about motion, right? So that subway car, maybe you do need to sit down because you might be more sensitive to motion sickness. So how is there anything you can do? Can you claim that disability seat and take care of your vestibular needs and your need to have a calmer nervous system by claiming what you need in that space? I know when I was living in Montreal and I was 7 months pregnant, so 2 months from term, but it was winter and I wore a big winter coat. Nobody knew that I was pregnant. So I never got that nice look. Here, would you like a seat? I had to ask for my seat and say, could you mind if I really sat down? And I think as we deal a lot of times with a hidden challenge, a hidden disability, a hidden obstacle, we have to be able to find the words to be able to speak up for what we need. That's coming up in another Fishbowl Live in our series. So stay tuned for that in coming weeks. But figuring out what we need, seeing whether it's around us, designing for it ourselves, those are really key principles to better design your space and have a more comfortable life. As far as challenges, we also need more information to feel comfortable. We need good transitions. We need time and good guidance for that. The one will be coming up your way shortly from Rafaela as we remind you about the show and so on. But I got two other points before Rafael does that. We need, in addition to paying attention to sensory sensitivity and careful transitions, we need great comfort for our body. And so when I'm talking about comfort, I'm talking about paying attention to the ergonomics of your space. And that means making sure, like right now, I'm sitting in my office chair, but often I will raise my desk and I will be standing because that's going to be a really helpful posture for me. Or I will go to my bed or my sofa and recline and read. I had a car accident in 2010 and got severe whiplash. And I found out by 5 o'clock, I couldn't hold my neck up anymore. I needed opportunities to rest in the day. So, what do you need in terms of posture to support what you need to do your best? And the last thing is just really what other preferences do you have that light you up? I mean, if you could see me right now, you would see a hot pink peony wall behind me. It's Benjamin Moore's peony pink that I use. I'm wearing a hot pink dress, and I sometimes have pink glasses on. Now I have black glasses with a shot of fuchsia and orange. I have a strong preference for bright colors. And what do you need in your space to feel energized? I think those are some of the challenges. We're going to move in a minute to talk from challenges into some design opportunities for you, a little bit about productivity styles that you might have and whether you're moved to create this or not, and upcoming 4-step plan to get organized. But Raphael, why don't you remind everybody who's on the call? We have so many people joining us now. I see Jennifer, Samantha, Jessica. Let's reset the room and remind everybody where we are, and also invite questions. And if someone wants to come on stage with an elaboration of the challenge they're facing, that would be awesome. So I wanted to come to the design really now that we've talked about what some of the challenges are for neurodivergent professionals. Wanted to talk a little bit about, gosh, there are some people that figure out how to be organized and manage time and manage space because there's a natural inclination and drive and curiosity to do it. And there are other people who are, you know what, I would really love to be like that, but I can't be like that. And there are people who are motivated on different levels through a sensitivity to chaos. And so I've built a little matrix, and I'm happy to share this with you. I'm going to be actually creating a pocket guide to this, and it's going to be available at clarekumar.com/fishbowl. And that's going to be the website page that's going to be available for anyone who wants to check out resources in this series that are going to be useful to you. So the first one is going to be this productive personality matrix, where I look at two axes. One is our sensitivity to chaos, our sensitivity to chaos, or our tolerance for disorder, however you want to look at it. Either we've got a big ability to manage a very busy space, or we might be on the other side where too much in around our physical space is overwhelming and kind of shuts us down. We also might be from low to high on the motivation to create order axis. And if we have low motivation, we might be anything from really reluctant. If we've got high tolerance for chaos and low motivation, we're really reluctant to bother. It's like somebody else's problem, you figure it out. On the other total extreme, if we have high sensitivity and high motivation, we are committed to solving these problems, and we are really, really, really dedicated to making sure our environment suits us everywhere we go. And we could be in some blend of those things on the way. So, from somebody who's got low motivation but high sensitivity, they're really wishing, they're the wishful, hoping they could get to that side. And then we've got our inspired folks who are, not overly troubled, but in certain places, oh my gosh, in certain places, I'm going to figure this out because I really need to. I've seen it both ways. I've seen people at home really figure out what they need to get their space working. And I've seen people in the office who say, oh gosh, I've got my office down, but my home is chaotic. So one thing I want you to be thinking about is, I know you're at work now and you're listening and we're talking about work for sure, but you can take all of these concepts and apply them in any realm that you're operating, whether it be work, school, home, they all kind of fit. So coming up on Fishbowl, on clarekumar.com/fishbowl, you'll be able to download that productive personality matrix with a bit of an explanation about the different types. The reason I think this is super important is we share our spaces with other people. And we share our spaces with other people. They are often in different quadrants there. And you might be with someone who really does not care. And here's the thing about a shared space where somebody doesn't care and may not be creating order, you're causing potentially stress for those around you. That's why when we think, let's think back for a second to a kindergarten classroom. And if we think back to a kindergarten classroom, there were zones for each different kind of activity. And there was also a place for everything and tidy up time, usually with a fun song to go with it, that made sure that things got back to where they needed to go. And so we can look at what do we need to have happen at our workplace, what do we need to have happen at home around the ways of being so that we maintain a system. And usually more structure and more organization is required in a shared space to keep it functioning so that everyone wants to use it. You know, here's an example. I was shopping yesterday at a big department store that I haven't shopped in for years. I won't name it because this is not a complimentary comment that I want to make. Yes, they have a lot of stuff in the place, but it didn't feel clean, organized, fully stocked. It felt rather chaotic and maybe explains why I haven't been there in a long time. But looking at even, I guess, where you choose to work for sure, but where you choose to spend your time as a customer may have a function to do with how that shopping experience is. I know one of the makeup brands has very high contrasting colors. I find that very taxing to be in, so I don't go in that store. There's another store here in Canada that has a color that I find so off-putting. I really try and avoid that store too. And so it's really interesting if you can start to notice what your preference is and then curate your experience so that you are having a little more joy and comfort going through your day. So I urge you to think about where you are in that matrix. But what I want to bring you now to is the plan to get organized. So I work as a productivity coach with executives and professionals now, and I'm talking about productivity from time and space, all kinds of things, work design. But for many years, when I needed a break from the corporate world, I spent a lot of time in people's homes. I was in the kitchen, I was in the family room, I was in the laundry room, I was in garages, basements, everywhere. And I was really looking at how people interacted with their space. And I developed a model, which I call the 4-step plan to get organized. And plan is an acronym. And the reason this is an efficiency strategy, really, in being well understood and being memorable, acronyms are our friend to hold something easily in your mind. So when you now think about getting organized, I want you to think about having your plan, and I'm going to break down the 4 steps of the plan. P in plan stands for prioritize. So before we do anything, before you're throwing things out, before you go shopping for pretty boxes or new storage furniture, I want you to prioritize 2 things. I want you to prioritize how you want to spend your time. So what do you want to do in that time? And then number 2, I want you to prioritize and really articulate how do you want to feel? And then what do you know gives you that feeling, right? So this is going to drive your choices for furniture and accessories. What do you need to have in that space? Are you a designer and you're working by hand potentially, or you're working with fabric and you need a lot of surface space to really manage your materials? Or are you a digital nomad right now and you're doing everything virtually and you're managing everything from one screen, or maybe you want to have portable additional two screens that you can set up to your computer. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? That should drive your choice of furniture, accessories, and tech tools, technology as well. The second part of priorities is, how do you want the space to feel? And this has to do with the amount of materials that are in your space. It also has to do with the quality of the materials, the color, the finishes, the textures. And as someone with sensory sensitivity, paying real attention to those things, like I love, 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 love rounded corners. So does my hip when I'm walking by, and I don't gash it or bang it. I mean, for practical reasons as well as design aesthetic. What are the things that have come up for you that you like? So I do want to put a question out there to you now. Is there a space that you're thinking about that is not working for you, and you want to work through articulating those priorities or how you want it to feel? If you want to bounce around any particular space, by all means, put your hand up or throw Raphael a question in the DMs, and I'd love to troubleshoot a space for you in terms of prioritization. I will move along in the 4-step plan to get organized. We're going to move from prioritizing to one of the most emotionally challenging parts of organizing. I call it liberate. I don't call it decluttering because I don't like to devalue your things. I don't call it purging because I think it's rather a violent term that should be just relegated to scuba diving. I think that we want to talk about liberating and letting go of that which does not serve our priorities. And so always anchoring in what is going to give you great life value, what is going to be rewarding to you, what is in line with your values, goals, personal endeavors. I want you to function there and think there, because it's much easier to let go of something when you've got a vision for what you want life to be full with. When you've got a challenge with space, and as like I said, I'm in a big city, Toronto, and space is very expensive. So more and more people are struggling to have enough places to manage their lives. Boy, in the pandemic, was it rough. I remember working with a couple who are in my condo building, and they were two professionals now working at home in a one-bedroom apartment, maybe 500 square feet. I don't know in meters what it is, 500 square feet. So not very big. And having to set up two working desks in the living room and be there all the time. Extremely, extremely stressful and challenging on the space. So I'm curious, if anyone's got a challenge letting things go when there's pressure on a space, anchoring into what your priorities are can be a real liberation tool for liberating. That's using the same word twice. Whoops. But it can be really a lubricant for letting go, I would say. So that's liberating. There's lots of reasons I can get into to talk to you about why liberating is hard. Happy to do that if you've got questions around that part of it. I want to move right now into the A of the 4-step plan. And A stands for arrange. It's about placing things so that you're expending the right amount of energy to retrieve them. And that's going to be a mix of things. It's going to be dependent on, weight, for example. If you've got a heavy item, and so forgive me, I'm going to use a kitchen analogy here. If I have a KitchenAid blender or a Vitamix with a very heavy motor, I don't want to put that on an upper shelf. I want to put that on a middle shelf so it's very comfortable and I can easily move it back and forth. And I'm also not afraid of dropping it on my head. So, thinking about where things go requires a bit of thought. And I have an acronym within my plan acronym here. I call it vamping up your space. And VAMP is the acronym, VAMP. And VAMP stands for keeping things, V is for visible. So I don't know how many of you out there really like to see what they have to be able to use it. It could be what's on your desk to remember the files you need to work on. It could be it could be making the checklist that Raphael and I made before we were going to jump on here to remember to do all the things we need to do. Making things visible can be oh so helpful. Point two is they need to be accessible. So visible and accessible. If you can easily reach it, then you're more likely to use it. If it's difficult to reach, you may not put something away or go and retrieve it. Probably the bigger challenge is around putting away than retrieving, because when you want something, there's an energy and motivation to go get it. There is far less energy to tidy up and put things away. And if there's a speed bump in that process, this is why papers don't get shredded, emails don't get deleted. It's why a desk can stay messy, because putting things away can be difficult. I remember working for a small business, and they were doing the payroll was done out of their home, and they had a filing cabinet, but no work surface in that space. So what happened by the time we got there was a team of two working for about 6 weeks, unpacking plastic bags of paper to sort through them to find out what was important and what actually probably needed to be filed away. And so if the system, furniture and accessories and organizing tools isn't set up to be comfortable and accessible to use, bad things can happen that all of a sudden become very expensive to fix. So, um, visible and accessible are the first 2 points. Manageability is often not thought about. And I want to bring your attention to, I'm going to use real life examples, but let's use a work example here. So, you may or may not have a lot of paper in your office now, but think back to when binders were the thing. And you could get a binder that's an inch big, easy to hold in your hand. Maybe 2 inches big is fine. Did anyone ever love managing a 3 to 4 inch binder with what? I don't know, easily a couple hundred pages, if not more, inside it? Maybe there could be up to 500 pages in a 4 inch binder, right? Those were beasts to navigate. They were heavy, awkward to use and manage. And the same thing happens with a bottle of ketchup. You might want to buy that 1.5 liter bottle of ketchup, but can everyone in your household actually use it? Maybe they have arthritis. Maybe they're 5 years old, and managing that beast of a bottle is really too hard. So how manageable is something? And then P is for pleasing. How does it make you feel? Right? So I have a fountain pen that I like using now, but I have to use it with the right paper. Okay, my cat is knocking my phone around. Ellie, Ellie, back on your carpet. Um, the paper has to be right with that pen so the ink flows smoothly. If I'm writing on rough paper, all of a sudden the pen and that paper combination falls apart. So the process has to be pleasing. There's sort of another P. It could be vamp with 2 P's. You want to protect your things as well. So, from humidity, from physical disturbance, from water, we want to protect from the elements as well. So, we've got visible, accessible, manageable, pleasing, and protected. And I want to just share a product that I actually co created, own the patent for, and is coming back to market. Some of you may have seen it actually way back in Bed Bath and Beyond, or if you were a Shopping Channel fan, you might have seen me on QVC or HSN, or up here in Canada, the Shopping Channel. It's a product for folding clothes, and I'm sharing with you now because if you like visibility, accessibility, manageability, and a pleasing solution, this is an example of a product that hits all four elements. It's called Plio, Plio, and it's a tool that helps you fold a garment, which isn't the biggest pain point it solves. It helps you fold a garment, it helps you put it away vertically or file it, and then it helps you find it. And it's like having a skeleton. We have a skeleton in our body that keeps our structure. Well, it turns a t-shirt into a book to put on a shelf or in a drawer or in a suitcase instead of having to try and manage a piece of paper. So this is an example of how you can find products that help keep products items visible, help keep them easy to access. And the real advantage to Clio here is manageability. It's easier to manipulate them, it's easier to use them. And so, what kind of products are coming up for you that will help you navigate life better and more comfortably? It's part of our space choosing these tools. If you want to see what Pleo looks like, go to pleo.ca and you can actually see the product and a video of how it works. And you can see if this is an example of this VAMP acronym for arranging your items. So, any questions? Oh, yeah, we have a raised hand by Natalia. Raphael, you want to bring Natalia on stage?
Of course. Welcome, Natalia.
Yeah. Hey,
Hi, can you all
Natalia.
hear me?
Yeah, we can. Go
Hey,
ahead, Natalia.
yeah, thanks so much. So thanks for about the vamping and all of that. My question for you is like, do you have any tips on for those of us that like are not the best at putting things away? Because that's what I struggle with. Even like the desk that I have now, I purposely no longer have a desk with drawers too, because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So I have like
Mhm.
a longer desk so I can see things. But sometimes, like, I'm not the best at tidying up or putting things back to where they should go. So if you have any tips around that.
They sure do. And ask me why, because I had to figure it out myself too. I'm the same way. I had to be able to see things. So, you want to talk about paper, for example? Would that be helpful?
Um, yeah, it could be paper, pens, just like things in
Okay.
general. Like I don't,
Yeah.
or I'm like one of those people that does piles, right? Like it's like, oh, I
Yes.
have this pile here and I know, but technically things should like have a home. Yeah.
Yeah, but piles can have a home. Piles can be a home too. And actually, while we talk about Pleo for a second, we're bringing Pleo back with the filing, but there's also clothing pilers because I believe you should be able to pile or file your clothes. And so
Yeah.
we have a model for piling too. So I just for all the pilers that are out there, I want you to feel seen. I think what's really important is understanding the real estate you have to work with and making those surfaces work for you. And so, one of the things that I loved for making, let's just take file folders, for example, making those be more easy to be seen, are those file holders that actually are step level. So, you'll be able to see 8 different file folders, for example, because you can read the label of each one in a raised file folder stand on your desk. And that ability to see each category can then be helpful. Here's another tool, clear plastic pockets. I love this tool with so it's a plastic pocket with 2 open sides, 2 sealed corners. And what I would do would be to have a plastic pocket per project and to label it, I would put a sticky note inside that so it can't be knocked off. And I would be writing in it, what the topic of that is. And I would put that in the top right of that pocket. So I could see pockets even on my desk. And I would just be able to see very quickly the label on that sticky note. So those are a couple examples of keeping things that could not normally get buried be visible, but you've got to think about how much storage space you have and then really prioritizing what needs to be visible and then how you navigate this balance of what needs to be visible and what's okay to be hidden. I think that's where really good labeling comes in. Clear bins with labels is awesome. One of the things I love to do was to use magazine holders as well and clear plastic shoe boxes so that you could actually see inside, but the label would give you a quick clue as well as the visual, pardon me, of seeing the actual items. Does that help, Natalia?
Yeah, I have some of those tools actually. I think
Mhm.
to your point, probably just getting stuff that is clear while still providing the organization parts. It's like it organizes, but I can still somewhat see it. Because like for
Mhm.
example, pens, like I need to write in different colors so that different things stand out to me. So I'll
Yeah.
leave pens scattered but I should put them back like in a bowl or a cup or something, you know what I mean? But so
Yeah.
I think clear, it might be the answer.
Yeah, I think prioritizing, knowing what you need to see, anything that you'll remember and have enough motivation to go get, you don't need to have kept out. But
Mhm.
anything you're going to be using regularly, get it upright so it takes less footprint. So find a decorative container. I'm using my dad's university beer stein, for example, as a container for, I think, chopsticks in the kitchen. You can have some more fun with containers, maybe, so that they become something you're liking to have those around, and then group things. Trays on tables and counters really work, and decorative containers that you're really excited to have around. You can think a little outside of the box and have fun with what you want to do. I have a rolling tray, a rolling stacking tray in my office with the 3 levels. They're pretty widely available now. And you could make that be something you could pull closer to your desk with all of your supplies on it. And it could be this almost work of art with your supplies. I have 8 different colors of glasses, and they're in the top row along with my makeup on that. And the second row is more tech stuff. And then I have art supplies on the bottom. So you can kind of play with what needs to be accessible by adding wheels to it too.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome, Natalia. Thanks so much for the question. I really, really appreciate the question. Yeah, if you want to join us just like Natalia did, we've got, 13 minutes left together, which is fabulous. And I've got one more element to the 4-step plan to go over with you. So, just to recap, the 4-step plan to get organized is prioritize how you want to feel, what you want to do in a space, which will drive your furniture, accessories, materials, finishes, all of that. L is for liberate, let go of what's not serving your priorities. A is for arrange, and we talked about the VAMP model to keep things visible, accessible, manageable, pleasing, and protected. And the N, I wanted a really kind word for this one because this is the hard part for a lot of us. N stands for nurture. And nurture is inviting you to have the repeat rituals. I could say habits, but I prefer the word rituals because I think rituals honors the spirituality that is in place when we honor our space and honor ourselves by designing it to really serve us. So I want you to think of creating a ritual that reestablishes order in a space so you feel very comfortable and you can accomplish those things that you want to do. And nurturing that response, it also suggests that it's not one and done. However, Marie Kondo would like to say, you only have to do this once. It's not one and done because life changes. And even in her own life, she has now children and a family. And I think she's probably redesigned some of her processes as well. And so we are continually looking at how we can take care of our spaces to make sure that they serve who we are and how we like to work. And in shared spaces, those around us as well. And so nurturing can look like, how often are you choosing to restore order in your working environment so that you can maintain that peace of mind? I know just before this session, I said to Rafael, I've got to clean off my desk. I showed him there were too many things around, and I took a few minutes to restore order and make room more for the cat to come back and be on my desk. I have at any time 1 or 2 cats on my desk, it seems. So I had to make sure there was space for those and space for my thinking and my ability to inhale, exhale deeply enough to keep my nervous system regulated. As neurodivergent people who are prone to sensory stimulation and also a lot of emotional responsiveness, the more that we can design our space to invite our flow in work, the better experience we can have. And if we're feeling better, then likely our relationships will be better as well. And that is also another topic in the Fishbowl series coming up. So stay tuned for that, building better relationships. That's in about a month. Our next one is in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking about managing time. And you know what? Everything you've heard here today in the 4-step plan applies to time as well. So if you're interested in time management, we're going to be looking at that in a couple of weeks. So definitely come back on the 15th at 2 p.m. for that. But let's stay right now talking about space. We've talked about the projective personality matrix, and you'll be able to download materials on that at clarekumar.com/fishbowl. You'll also be able to download a blog post or get a link to the blog post, which is all around the 4-step plan. So if you want a bit more of a breakdown on the 4-step plan and to keep that close to you, you'll be able to get that right on that Fishbowl page too on my website, clarekumar.com/fishbowl. And so nurture, this is the one where any particular space, whether it's your inbox, your desk, could be your gym bag, it could be your purse, your wallet, it's your suitcase, it's your kitchen, your pantry at work. It's any space that you want to keep working for you needs to have the practices in place so that it keeps functioning. I remember doing a talk on being organized at work and being productive. And I was in the lunchroom, and there were some very clear signs and guidance as to nurturing practices to help the kitchen stay clear. So it was do not leave dishes in the sink. When the dishwasher's clean, please, if you notice it, unload it, because otherwise those dishes in the sink will keep piling up. So there were clear practical invitations in the workplace to keep that space functioning so that everyone wanted to go and relax and be able to use that kitchen. So one of the principles I have around keeping space going, there's two. There's pay yourself forward. So pay yourself forward, which means noticing the things that you can do at the end of a working session or an activity to set yourself up for success the next day. That might be at the end of your workday, setting your desk up so that you are darn happy to see it in the morning, not cringing as you walk by. It's yeah, that pay it forward. Oh gosh, Ellie likes to knock my phone. Ellie, stay on your carpet. There we go. Sorry for the cat intrusions. Ellie just likes to make himself very part of everything we're doing. If you want to see pictures of my cats, you can go to clarekumar.com on the About page and scroll down, and you'll see the golden boys. Theo and Ellie are there, and they show up for everything, every interview, every conversation. They're always here. So if you want to meet them, you'll probably hear from them again, and you'll know who I'm talking about. They were, incidentally, they were two beautiful creatures I brought into my space on March 29th, 2020, when the pandemic started. And I needed more social interaction in my space, even though I was very, very, very used to working from home and very comfortable doing that. I needed interaction with other beings. And so Theo and Ellie came to my rescue. And now they provide constant entertainment. So coming back to, I said there were two things. There's pay yourself forward. So what are you going to do to take care of future you? And there's Talby, Talby. Talby stands for take a look behind you. Take a look behind you. Whenever I finish something, I have to remind myself to take a look behind me. And if I've just made a sandwich in the kitchen, there is a good chance a cabinet door would still be open, the food would still be out, and I would be apt to leave all that in place and then go to my next activity because novel is way more fun than something that's tedious and that I have to do. So I had to really remind myself. I actually came up with this when I was talking to my daughter to encourage her to remember to look behind her. So I didn't have to go behind her, picking everything up after her as well. So pay yourself forward and take a look behind you are two practices I lean on. And I think they can definitely benefit those ADHD minds that are more apt to run to the next dopamine hit and the next novel thing. I want to open it up. We've got really only a couple minutes left, maybe time for one more question. If anybody has a question, oh, yes, I see we do. Raphael, maybe you can look after Solimi. And Solimi, you can let me know if I'm saying your name right or not.
You are. That's pretty impressive. So thank
Oh,
you for that.
Thank you. I think it's so important that we learn and make an effort to really respect people's identity. And I love learning about people's names. Before you ask your question, can you tell me what your name means?
My name is Greek, but my parents are from the Dominican Republic, so they were just trying to be a little bit, I guess you could say, unique.
But I've traveled to the Dominican a few times, and Dominican and Cuba, I found names are phenomenally diverse and interesting and fantastic. So, yay to your parents, and what a beautiful name. What's your question?
So I kind of find it hard sometimes to find tips on someone who maybe might be the opposite. So my sister and I both have been diagnosed with ADHD, but she's very much the opposite of me. Like she is perfectly okay with a very untidy space. I'm the complete opposite. I need everything to be super clean and tidy, but sometimes it can kind of get in the way of getting things done. Either at work or even at home or even just when it comes time to relax, there if you leave it up to there's always something that needs to be cleaned, you'll never finish. So do you have any tips on managing something like that where you constantly need things to be as tidy as possible and managing your time with that?
Yeah, I love the question. Thank you so much, Salimi. I think I'm glad you brought it up because this was one of the most recurring conversations I had working with people who with a shared space, often at home, sometimes in an office. And I think the first thing to do is invite an understanding of what the stress is like for you as someone who prefers a more ordered space. And that's where I don't know if you were on the call when I was talking about the productive personality matrix, but by tomorrow, there will be a downloadable there. And I would urge you to talk about this with your sister and recognize where you both show up on that and talk about also the feelings that come up when you're in a disordered space. And the best way I've found to help someone understand this is to use the analogy of either music or a food, and to have a conversation about what kind of genre of music perhaps your sister might not like, and then to say, well, you know what this is like for me, and please don't allow me to put words in your mouth, find the words that make sense for you. But you could say this, just say that opera is not your favorite thing. You can say that potentially this space is like having opera on fully loud, and you can't turn it off, and it's really affecting how you feel, and it's really stressful. By correlating your discomfort to a stress that your sister might relate to, you can really unlock empathy, first of all, and then hopefully invite compassion, which is oh gosh, out of loving and caring for each other and respecting each other, which has to be there in working and family and colleague relationships. What can we do to solve this that takes care of everybody here? And what could it look like? And then I urge you to explore what that could look like really specifically. But you first got to unlock that empathy and understanding. We are at a 1 minute away. So, Salimi, I want to thank you for that and say, please do visit clarekumar.com/fishbowl. And I want to just say it was a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I'm going to pass it to Raphael back to close out for today. I want you to all come back, though. We've got a series, and if you like today, you'll like the rest of the episodes as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget there are resources for you on clarekumar.com/fishbowl. There you can grab the Organizing Personality Matrix, a link to the 4-step plan, PLAN, as Claire taught you, and to get organized. And also you can sign up for the Happy Space newsletter. We're hoping you can join us on May 15th at 2 p.m. this time for the second show in the series, Manage Your Time. Until then, take care of you, and don't forget that everyone deserves a happy space.